Hey everybody, today we're getting started with R. By the end of this vid, you'll be all set up. You'll feel comfortable with the kind of screen you're looking at right now. You're seeing R Studio. You'll be able to import a data set, understand how R views its structure, and be able to do some basic calculations and statistical tests with your own data. So, to start, if you haven't already, you'll want to install both R and R Studio. And to do this, you just Google install R, and you should follow the links to the Posit website. That's the company that makes R Studio, which is the graphical user interface that is most commonly used with R. If you follow those links, and I'll throw one in the description down below, you will come to this screen where you install both R and R Studio. I use the analogy that R is like the engine of your car. It's the thing that actually does the work, but that mostly you don't actually interact with. While R Studio is like the compartment of your car. You sit down, that's where the controls are, the steering wheel, etc. That's the thing you normally use when you're actually going somewhere in your car. So you'll need to install both of these. And they're both free, and you can just accept all of the defaults for installation, unless you're more of a power user and want to customize those. Now, when you first open up R Studio, and by the way, you always open up R Studio, not R, again, just like you always get into the compartment of your car, not the engine. When you first open up R Studio, it's potentially a little bit intimidating. You may have up to 4 windows here with a lot of different stuff going on. Now, in this video, we're going to work almost entirely in the console. The other panes come into play later as you get more advanced, although I will point out a couple of useful things from the environment pane and files pane a little bit later. To start, I'm just going to minimize the this what we call script up here. It's got the untitled 1 label. I'm just going to make the other console a little bigger so we can see all of it here. We are going to be working here entirely, and when you think about the console in R Studio to start, you can just think about it sort of as like a powerful calculator. And you can do things like 5 plus 8 and get 13. You may have noticed I put in some spaces between the 5 and the plus and the 8. R ignores white space by default, so you don't have to worry about it. You can do things like square roots, and you can do the square root, for instance, of 15, about 3.87. And just about any sort of mathematical operation that you would want to do has a built-in function for it. And you can always find it by Googling. Usually your first guess as to the name of the function is right. Now, pretty soon you're going to want to start actually saving your results. And you can do that just by assigning a variable. So let's take a variable called x, and we will assign it to have the value, I don't know, how about the square root of 15? So we already know what that is. Notice that I used this left arrow, the less than symbol followed by the dash. That's the assignment operator in R. It takes the thing on the right side of the arrow and assigns it to the thing on the left. An equal sign will work, but that's generally not sort of in the R culture. The big thing there is that the equal sign is kind of reserved for other uses. We don't want to get it confused with assignment. Also, assignment is directional. It goes from right to left in this case, while the equal sign, just mathematically, is symmetric. And we can now do things like x plus 5, just to treat x like it was any other number. By the way, also notice in the environment tab when I saved the variable x, there's now a record of that under the environment. So I can see all of the variables that I may have created earlier or recorded earlier. Now, things get a little bit more interesting when we start saving more than one number at a time, or more than one value at a time. So what I want to do now is to set up what we call a vector. And this is going to be a string of values, a list of values that has a particular order. Let's call this y, and we're going to let it be the values 1, 6, -4, and pi. And by the way, pi is recognized by R as 3.1415, etc. Again, this shows up in our environment pane. Up here in the right, we can see that it is a numeric vector. I'll have to talk about other kinds of vectors in just a moment. I'll do that. We can see it has 4 entries, numbered 1 to 4, and the entries are 1, 6, -4, and 3.14. Again, we're seeing rounded versions here. All right, so the nice thing about this is that we can do operations on an entire vector all at once. So for instance, we can take the square root of y, and get the square root of each of the individual values. So it took the square root of 1 and got 1, the square root of 5 and got a little under 2.5, and so on. When it tried to take the square root of -4, it gave us an NaN, not a number, because of course the square root of a negative number is imaginary. It is possible to work with imaginary and complex numbers in R, but since R is a programming language built to work with data, it's generally not too relevant, and I'm not going to talk about it here today. There are lots and lots of built-in functions for working with vectors. I think the main one I want to point out right now is the mean. We can find the mean of this vector, y, 1.535. There's also functions for standard deviation, SD, variance, and so on. Okay, so that's all well and good, but if you're coming into R, you're probably having a data set that you actually want to do something with. You want to get some summary statistics, you want to visualize it, you want to build some sort of model, maybe run some statistical inferences. So I have a data set all set to go for some examples. It's called amy.csv, and I will include this on my website. There'll be a link to my website where this data can be found down below in the description, so you can follow along if you like. So if you can locate the file on your machine here in the file browser, you can see you've got just some breadcrumbs here that can take you different places on your machine, and then files and folders that you can click on here. Once you identify the file that you want to import, you can just click on it, and you'll see you get a couple of options. The one we're going to want is Import Dataset. When we open that up, when we click that, we get a pop-up window with, again, a lot going on, including a preview that you can't see too well here because I'm pretty zoomed in for your own accessibility. We get a code preview that we can ignore for right now, but that's just telling us sort of what commands R is going to execute in order to import this data set. And when we click import, those commands are actually going to get run. So we'll click import, and you can see those 3 commands got passed down into the console. So there's the import command, read_CSV. Now, the first time you do this, you'll probably get a prompt saying something like, the reader package, the readr package is not installed. Do you want to install it? You should say yes. What's going on there is that R is an old language with roots in the late 80s or early 90s, and the reason it remains vibrant and active to this day is that it includes capabilities for users to create their own functions, data sets, and other functionality that they can share with other users. And these are called packages. Some of them have become extremely well established and are just considered core to the R experience. The reader package, the readr package, is pretty high on that list. This is just a standard package that is used. I sometimes use the analogy of apps on your phone when I'm talking about packages. Your mobile phone comes with all sorts of apps on it, but probably not nearly everything you want to do. So when you want to add an app from the Play Store or the Apple Store, you need to go to that store and actually download it onto your machine. And that's what's going on when you're being asked to install the package. However, just because you have an app on your phone doesn't mean you're all set to use it. You have to actually open it up when you actually want to use it, by tapping on the icon or whatever. That's going on with this library command that's letting R know that not only do we want this package installed, but now we actually want to use it. Bottom line, you only have to install a package once to get it onto your machine in general, but every time you want to use it in a new session, like you've quit R and come back, you have to get access to it with library. So that's where the library readr is coming from. The next line of code is importing the amy.csv dataset as Amy. If you look in your environment tab now, you'll see you have an object called Amy, and it tells you have 127 observations of 39 variables. We get some details on what's going on with all the columns, and then finally, R has used the view Amy command. So view, kind of just look at it, and then Amy, the name of the data set. And you can see what that did. It pulled up the Amy data set in a very light sort of Excel spreadsheet kind of thing. This is not intended to be a place where we actually work, but it is nice to just be able to glance at the data set and see what we've got. We have 127 rows. You can see those are called entries here, 39 columns. In general, we like it when columns and variables are the same thing. That's the case in this data set. That's called tidy data. And if you go on in your study with R, you'll run into that idea quite a bit. All right, so what we have here are 127 songs that were available on Spotify as of the time this data set was downloaded in about 2021 or 2022, I want to say, is when I got it. And each row represents a song, and if we scan to the right, we'll find the names of the songs. You can see we've also got a bunch of Spotify metrics here. So with some Google searches, you can learn a little bit more about all of that, but let's just find some song titles. And you can see we have Stronger Than Me, Take the Box, Live from the Mercury Prize Awards, etc. Now, ultimately, we're going to want to do some things with these columns, with some of these columns. Like, I'm going to want, in a moment, to look at danceability, find the average danceability, maybe even do a t-test with it. The way that R views a data set is as a collection of columns, each one of which is just a vector. So, for instance, danceability is a vector. And we can actually see that by just entering the name of the data set, Amy, then a $sign, and then the name of the column. So in this case, I want to look at danceability. And you may have noticed R is giving us autocomplete suggestions once we've got just a few characters typed. So there we go, danceability. You can click on it. You can also just hit enter or tab to accept that condition, that suggestion. So Amy $danceability is going to be a vector of length 127. Because we have a danceability rating for each one of the Amy Winehouse songs in this data set. By the way, notice these numbers on the left, 1, 9, 17, etc., all in brackets. This is telling you which element of the vector you're on. So the very first row in this data set has a danceability of 0.782. The ninth danceability in this vector, in this data set, the ninth row of the data set, has a danceability of 0.317, and so on. Great, so we can get the average of that just with mean of Amy danceability. There we go. The average danceability of Amy Winehouse songs in this set is just a little over 0.557. Now, I mentioned here that we had some categorical values, that vectors could take on categorical values as well. And you can see that here in the Amy data set. You see any number of columns here that aren't just numbers. In particular, I want to point out track name, which is just the names of all the songs. And we can see those as well. Oops. There we go. This is where I want to be. For instance, with Amy track name. There we go. And you can see, again, 127 values there, and you can see all that they are. Okay, so the last thing I really want to do here is that t-test on danceability. So suppose I have a null hypothesis that the mean danceability of all Amy Winehouse songs, even the ones that are not in this data set, is actually exactly 0.5. And the alternative hypothesis would be two-sided, just that it's not 0.5. So basically, in the case where the null hypothesis is true, we're asserting that the sample mean that we have here of about 0.55 is different from that null hypothesis just by random chance. The command we'll use to run a one-sample t-test in R is t.test, pretty logical name. We have to specify the name of the vector that we want to perform a t-test on. So again, Amy $danceability. And of course, when we're running a t-test, we have to specify what our null hypothesis value is. And we do that in R with mu equals. And in this case, the null hypothesis value is 0.5. When I hit enter, I'll get a little printout with some summary results about that t-test. You can see that we have 126 degrees of freedom because there's 127 observations. You can see we have a test statistic, a t-value of about 4.18. It reminds us what our alternative hypothesis was. In this case, a two-sided alternative. That's the default for R. True mean is not equal to 0.5. So that is what I wanted to test. Additionally, notice we have a p-value here of 5.46 times 10 to the negative fifth. So it's an extremely small p-value. There's strong evidence against the null hypothesis in any reasonable level of significance, including the most common one of alpha equals 0.05. we reject the null. Last thing I want to say about that is you may have more specialized needs for your t-test. For instance, you might want to do a one-sided alternative. And so you'll need to learn a little bit more about how to do, about what the t-test function is actually doing. Every built-in R function and every R function that loads with a package has a help file that goes with it that you can access with question mark and then the name of the function, so t.test. That will pull up something here in your help pane over in the lower right. Make that a little bigger so you can see it. There we go. Student's t-test performs 1 and 2 sample t-tests on vectors of data. In particular, you can see that it tells you the basic syntax of it. The thing I want to point out here really is the optional arguments. In particular, we use the optional argument of mu. Mu equals 0.5 was what we said. When you see an argument listed here with an equal sign in it, mu equals 0, that's letting you know it's an optional argument and that the default is on the right. So in this case, if we don't specify a mu value, R will default to a null hypothesis value of mu equals 0. Similarly, for the alternative hypothesis, we could specify less or greater. The default is going to be two-sided, and it's written here in a bit more technical way. The first argument in your t.test function is not optional. It is just a vector of values that must be passed. And if you don't pass any arguments to your t.test command, you will get an error. If you want to learn a little bit more about those arguments, you can scroll down a little bit to read about them. But sometimes I think the thing that is most helpful to people is the examples that come at the bottom of the help file. There's a Run Examples button, so if you do that, it will actually show you the outputs of these things in your help file, in your help window as well. A lot of times it's easier to see how things actually work than just to hear a description of how they would work, so that's a good direction to go. Okay, so that should be enough to get you up and running with R. Additionally, it should have you prepared for a deeper study. And so you're now prepared to learn about a little bit of data visualization with R, some modeling, as well as some data wrangling, cleaning, and data management best practices. This is at the start of a whole course that I have on R programming. I'll make sure there's a link to that whole playlist down below, as well as a link to the next video in the series in the end screen of this. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, Equitable Equations, I hope you'll do so right now. I'm your one stop for becoming an expert in R programming, data science more generally.